Hello, everybody. This is Jonathan Matos of GraphicallyChristian.com, and I'm joined by my colleague and other Christian cartoonist, Matt Snipes. Welcome, Matt. I knew it. I knew it was coming.
I was like, maybe, just maybe it'll work out. Hey, folks. I'm crude and vulgar. Well, not vulgar, but mostly crude. What I want to be. Not always. I can be nice. I can be polite. I usually don't. Usually not, though.
When you're at weddings and stuff, you know, clean up.
I hate weddings. Anyway. Don't fall for that topic. I mean, I sound like a horrible person in this podcast.
Well, you know, I think in the past decade, there have been, I don't know, I guess it's just basically people on the internet comforting each other about, like, disliking things like weddings and children and stuff. You know, like, you don't have to like kids. You don't have to like weddings. Just don't be a jerk when you're at one or when you're watching them.
Yeah. And anyway, not to get off on that side topic that'll just dig me down a rabbit hole I can never get out of.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. So we usually start off with the State of the Union, meaning the state of our website, graphicallychristian.com. We publish web comics on there as of now. Sentient Salad Bar is the strip that I do. It goes up on Tuesdays and Fridays. I took a week hiatus because there's a lot of renovating going on in my house. And as well as the other content, there was just a lot of errors on the videos I was trying to do. And it made it so that I couldn't post them. But we just started more speed art videos and also doing this podcast. So hopefully that can go up this week, no problem. And also we have No Apologies Allowed, which is going to start updating more regularly starting soon. Was that... You okay over there?
I'm good.
There was some kind of static or something.
Oh, really?
Oh, well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's the update for this week. And today's topic, we wanted to make this more about, content that comes out that we have experience with. That being movies, TV shows, comics, what have you. And this past week I saw Ant-Man, and I really liked it. And I was trying to rank it on the, index of Marvel movies, and I think I liked it about as equally as I did Iron Man 3. Certainly better than Thor: The Dark World. Maybe even more than the original Thor. I just thought
Wait, hold on. You think the original Thor is better than the Dark World?
Yeah, I would put that above that.
Really? Because that's pretty much universally agreed to be like the worst Marvel movie yet to this date produced. Marvel Studios
I don't know.
movie.
I think that's. We also, before the show started, we were talking about action movies versus, like comedies, and I like the whole action comedy thing a lot, and so.
You're just a sucker for jokes. If you like the jokes in a movie, you will like that movie more than you probably should.
Well, I think it's all part of like the emotional appeal. Like, I care more about the characters if they're funny, and maybe that's the same.
Wow, what does that say about you?
I know,
John?
it's like it's
What
right
does
up
that
there
say about
with
you?
weddings and kids.
If you don't entertain me, I really don't care about you at all. You're nothing to me if you're not entertaining and funny.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I hope you find your parents and your family members funny. Because otherwise.
Yeah, I do, but hopefully I would love them even if I didn't find them funny.
Yeah, okay. That's yet to be proven. So,
do not question my allegiances, sir. So anyway, but yeah, I think a lot of people don't like the first Thor because it wasn't like as big and bombastic as other action movies. But I thought it was. I'm also a sucker for origin stories. I really, if I have a strong attachment to the first like for the longest while, I really liked, the first Spider-Man, and I actually put it above Spider-Man 2. Um, but when we got the third, I think by that point, I kind of noticed how much, there was so much love for the second movie, and I saw like, all the stuff in it that everybody else really liked, and so I started putting it above
Yeah.
the first one. But I do have a very big attachment to uh, origin stories. I think the first Star Wars is actually my favorite. Um, but
Mm.
yeah, so I liked the first Thor. But yeah, I thought Ant-Man was it was a strong comedy, but it also was like, even though Edgar Wright was not involved. For those of you who don't know, he spent like 9 years developing Ant-Man before he was taken off of it and replaced by Peyton Reed as the director. Um, but all the visuals were, I think prevised is the term for it. They were pre-visualized by Edgar Wright, and so those were all really interesting to look at. Like, I was worried that it was going to be kind of hokey, like Honey I Shrunk the Kids, kind of like humor, um, and really play off of that. And there were like some jokes that you might think of as being corny, um, but I think it really did show like this um, I guess you would call it like the heist aspects of the film worked, the comedy worked, the um, action in it worked. I love Corey Stoll as the villain. I really like that actor. He's also doing The Strain now on FX, and uh, I also really liked him in Midnight in Paris. He was uh, Ernest Hemingway in that movie. He's pretty funny in that, but he's just a really strong actor, and um, I think his motivations might not have been as strong as his performance, but that might have been the only weak part of the movie. Um, Evangeline Lilly was a very like intimidating like actor in the movie. She doesn't get to be a heroine necessarily, but she's a lot more necessary in this movie than she is in like the Hobbit movies. She's not just there
Mm.
to be like the token girl. So that was really cool. Michael Douglas really played ball and was like, from what I know of the Ant-Man character of the original Hank Pym character, he had like a personality to him that wasn't just like Tony Stark or something. He
Oh wait, it's supposed to be Hank Pym is the creator of the suit.
Yeah,
I
Hank
never knew
Pym.
the origins
Michael Douglas plays Hank Pym, and just like
because
in the
Hank Pym
comics,
is kind of like a, I don't know, he's a bigger deal in the comics than just like the creator of Ant-Man's suit. Like he's close friends with Reed Richards, and like they develop a bunch of stuff. Like he's a part of like a lot of expanded universe stories. Like when stuff is going on that affects a bunch of different characters, he's usually a part of that. Like he's either working with Stark
right?
or Reed or something on some other project.
You know what I hypothesize? I don't. I This is just me, coming up with this out of nowhere, but I hypothesize that maybe Tony Stark was the original like troubled scientist, but he was so popular that maybe they like cleaned him up and created Hank Pym to be more like a mad scientist type of character,
Hmm.
because in the comics Hank Pym is the one who creates Ultron. In the comics,
Mm.
his relationship with his wife, who becomes the Wasp, like there's this famous thing where like he hits her, and it's like Marvel dealing with domestic abuse in one of its comics, um,
Hmm.
and so like I think he took on that role of this scientist who's so like absorbed in his own ego that he's he's playing God, and he's taking his frustrations out on other people. Um, so
Hmm.
so they toned it down, but they do have like he's estranged from his daughter, and that's kind of like the theme of it is that he's getting Scott Lang played by Paul Rudd, to do this heist for him, and he thinks that it'll clear his name, so that he can reunite with his daughter, and so or rather, it'll give him enough money to pay child support, so that he can see his daughter again. But obviously, like, part of it is like a redemptive thing of like, look what your dad's doing, he's saving the world. And then it's kind of interesting because once Paul Rudd's character is like first involved in the heist that they're planning, Hank Pym is actually working with his daughter, who Evangeline Lilly is playing, and it's like they've been playing the long con, and have actually been planning this for a few years. It seems like, before the movie actually begins, which I really like, and I feel like it's the first hint of, how they could handle Spider-Man. Like, you don't need an origin story for every single character. They can actually show you parts of the Marvel Universe that have been going on for, a few years, if not for like a lifetime. And there was really like a sense of history and a sense of the relationship between Hank Pym and his daughter. And so it's like the emotional part of it worked, as well as like the comedy and the action. So I really enjoyed it. I don't know if like you were saying that like you don't really like this trend towards action comedies as much as I do, but is that going to make you skip this for something else down the line, or what?
I don't know. It's just like I don't see the superhero genre as like an action comedy genre. I see the superhero genre when I go to see a superhero movie. I don't really like want to go to like. Okay, well that's not true. Because I know like when I see Deadpool, if I go see Deadpool, I'll probably really enjoy that. It's to me the superhero movie all rides on the character that it's based on, the superhero character that's based on, whether what I like, what I feel about them, what I like about them, whether or not I think they'll make a good feature film. And just Ant-Man, I don't know next to anything about him besides his ability to just shrink or whatever. I don't know if they went into the comics, but I mean into the movie, but I'm pretty sure in the comics he also has the ability to make himself like 10 stories tall. I'm pretty sure. I think his suit in the comics was supposed to work both ways. I don't think they did that in the movie.
Yeah, I think they were kind of saving that in terms of like the Ant-Man himself making himself super big, but they do like make certain objects really big, and some of it's for like comedic effect, some of it's to like have the heroes have like a moment of like they get to look really awesome, because this thing that they have is really big. But
yeah.
the another thing I was kind of thinking of that this movie kind of rides on, and I guess Guardians to an extent kind of does, is that there's certain things like maybe like Batman versus Superman where the action with like, well, I guess like with the director like Zack Snyder, the action, the fighting itself is a big focus. But it seems like there, with things like Ant-Man or Guardians of the Galaxy, there's another thing that appeals to me about it besides just the comedy aspect of it, is there's kind of like general like whimsy of like, in Guardians there's the raccoon, there's the talking tree, and making that work and making you believe that these characters are real was a big part of it. And so like that holds true for Ant-Man too, because you need for it to be the right combination of like, self-aware. It's making fun of the fact that nobody's really expecting to be threatened by this tiny character, but it creates this kind of like quirky character with Hank Pym, and then with his protege, that like you get it. It's like something that works on screen just like it does in the comic, or maybe even in a different way, in its own unique way. So that's what I feel like. Like there are certain movies where when it's just trying to make you believe that Hulk can smash, and trying to get you to like root for the character, and it's very one note in just having that. Like the new Hulk movie is another example. Like it very much worked as an action movie, but it wasn't really as inventive, I think, as the Ant-Man movie. I might put that Ant-Man movie ahead of that, in that regard. So that's I feel like you need a couple different appeals in a movie. You can't just do an action movie or just a comedy. This one I think had the right unique combination of being a heist movie and being comedic. That it got like $50 million over the weekend, and it was number one. So
Yeah, well, I mean that's because Marvel spent probably like 20 million on advertising alone for this movie. I mean, I
right.
can't even tell you how many commercials and trailers and advertisements I've seen for this movie. It's easily more than any Marvel movie I've seen advertised thus far. And that was another reason why I was wary of it, honestly, because you can always tell, like, when a company or a studio doesn't have as much faith in a film as they do others, is when they advertise the heck out of it, because they know the film needs the advertising, which, I mean, Ant-Man really does, is because I think a lot of people operate on the same basis that I do when deciding what movies to see is, they based on the premise and the trailers and just what they know about the story or the characters, they decide whether or not it's something they're interested in seeing. It's just like Ant-Man on paper or on just the basic premise or trailer doesn't really get you that excited. It's just as a character, it's just like there's no air of mystery about him. There's just like he's a guy who can become really small and do
Well,
things,
that's
I
what I'm
guess.
talking about with whimsy. Like some people see that, and it kind of reminds them of stories like what's it called, like the Indian in the cupboard or whatever.
Oh,
I don't know if that's
man.
been renamed since it came out to be more culturally
I
sensitive.
remember liking those movies when I was younger, and then looking back on them now, I can't understand why. Because it's a gimmick. It's just a whole thing. The whole thing is just one big gimmick.
Right.
It's just they just go back to the fact that he just goes super small, and then does stuff. It's like he's small again. Look at that. Isn't
Well,
that
like
fun?
there's a difference. Like if there's something like Night at the Museum, where it's like joke upon joke upon joke about just that they're just tiny, and that's the joke, then it's not gonna
Hmm.
work. But if you have, um, uh, like um, in Ant-Man, uh, you need to create a world where this is a genius on the same level as Tony Stark, but he's not trying to mimic him, and he's doing his own thing, uh, and it's something that um, it did hit me on that whimsy level, but I don't think if it just stayed on that gimmicky level, if it would have done nearly as well as it did. And I know like to address the whole like they advertise the crap out of it thing. Um, I'm still at the point where I really distrust what the executives think is going to work, because uh, I would hope that even though it's kind of limited what I'm going to be able to see, depending on like whether my parents want to see it or not. But I would hope that like if there's something that they're giving a chance, at least that they like greenlit it and it's actually going to be a movie, regardless of how they feel about it. I would hope that I could go out and support it and try to find stuff in there that I like, no matter what. Like I I don't know. I just don't know if I trust what executives are going to say that is a good movie or not. Um, and so that
Yeah, but
I don't know if
I don't know. It kind of sounds like you walked into this movie already determined that you were going to enjoy it, regardless of your actual experience.
well, I had high expectations because I thought it looked good, um, but I don't know, I can't kind of extricate myself from the reality of the situation.
Well, because if
I
you
mean,
start thinking like, I know the executives did don't like this type of thing, so I'm gonna find value in it regardless. That's kind of like you're definitely walking in with a bias at that point.
well, it's more that I wanted to go in not not being influenced by how much people were saying like this is going to be like it's kind of a catch-22. Like I can't since since I'm aware through like movie podcasts and stuff like that, people keep saying over and over like, "Wow, we're seeing so many ads for this." So obviously the people have less confidence in this than they did something like Avengers or something that is already had a movie before it and that did really well. Since I'm so immersed in that internet culture, and I know what both from the amount of ads, what everybody is expecting there, and other fans that probably think a lot like me, that I indulge in their kind of expectations too. I don't doubt that I had some emotional uh, response to both of those, but I, it's just my opinion. I thought it was a good movie. Um, so
Okay, I'm done. I'm done
for
breaking
if
you over the coals for Ant-Man. I'm still probably not going to see it. Maybe when it comes out on TV or something, I'll catch it online somewhere. But I don't know. These days, with the price of movies, there are very few movies that you're like, you know what? I am going to go. I am going to, take my time and my time off, or my limited time off, and go out there and get ready and go out with organize some friends, and then go pay, $13, $14. Like going to see a movie when you start to be pretty busy with your job or whatever, and then all your friends are busy. Like it's not only a hassle, but now you have to pay like a good amount of money for 2 hours or so of entertainment. Now it becomes like a pretty big investment of time and money. So it's like it really takes quite a bit to get me out to see something. Um, and Avengers 2 almost did it, except for the fact that I knew I could find it online. Um, but I don't know. I don't know what the next one will be that could ever get me out of my chair. Well, I know. Actually, no, I do know this one. It's gonna be freaking Star Wars, obviously. Um, but I don't know. When the whole time you're talking about Ant-Man, like to me, the exact opposite to something that would like immediately pique my interest, and I'd be fascinated to see where they went with it, was if I heard or I saw a trailer for like an Iron Fist movie. If I saw they were making an Iron Fist movie, I would be like, oh, okay, that's very interesting. I'm very interested to see how they go with that. Um, which is almost like the exact opposite when they announced the Ant-Man movie or showed the trailer for the Ant-Man movie, which was my reaction was more or less just like, eh, whatever. But just because that's just my reaction to the Ant-Man character in general. It's like, eh. But like Iron Fist, on the other hand, like I never read a bunch of Iron Fist books, or I don't really know much about him. But just from the small amount that I do know about him, he's just a very interesting, mysterious character that if I heard they were doing a movie on him or something, I would be very interested in seeing that. Just because of the mystery that surrounds the character and the fact that his origin, I believe his origin story is a lot different than most others and whatnot. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know. Marvel, make an Ant-Man movie, make an Iron Fist movie, please, or make an Iron Fist something, Netflix series or something. I don't know.
yeah, I would be interested in that. But moving on to our next segment is about stuff coming up soon. One of the things that came to mind is I keep seeing more and more ads for it. Is that they're bringing back X Files to they're rebooting it for Fox. Now, I don't remember actually seeing a full episode of X Files.
I've never watched an X-Files episode ever. I don't think.
Hmm.
I think I may have caught like half of a scene once or twice flipping through the channels when I was younger, but I've never sat down and watched an X-Files episode. I
Oh.
don't know. And to this day, it's still like I'm still not even really interested in the reboot. It's like I don't know.
See, the
Like, I
thing is,
know.
I feel like I would like it because I know. I mean, my dad grew up watching, or my dad grew up showing me the Twilight Zone, and so from that, like every other type of thing that does like a monster of the week or like like exploring this type of weird supernatural mystery of that week, and like I watched Fringe. People say that kind of had a similar setup. Um, that has always intrigued me, and so and I also like the the characters from what I've heard really interest me. My sister really liked X Files growing up, and so like the kind of like one person being a skeptic and another person being like a that's kind of like how we are. um,
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've already seen Fringe. I know Fringe borrowed a lot from the X Files, whatever, and I already watched all Fringe and went through that, and I really liked that series. Um, so it's just like
yeah,
I don't know.
I still haven't finished Fringe. Um,
Yeah.
I think I got it was weird because I got past most of the monster of the week stuff, which some people like it kind of turned them off to it.
Hmm.
And I think it was just starting to get into more of the like getting back to the whole uh, dual dimensions thing, and for some reason
Oh
I
yeah.
stopped watching it. Um,
That show gets so interesting farther down the line with the alternate dimensions and dealing with all the stuff from William Bell and like the storylines get so complicated in terms of like what's actually going on at what times with what characters or what versions of what character. Um, where it's just like the X Files always just kind of seemed like I don't know. It just seems like the vanilla version of Friends, where it's just like take all the things that you love about Fringe, take them out, and leave the rest. And that's kind of like X Files, where it's just like
well, I
it's like
think
Law and Order with aliens.
that there's wait was Fringe J.J. Abrams thing?
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe because that he had produced like Lost and stuff like that. Um, he had produced so many other shows that had worked. Um, I guess he had the confidence that he could create something that would have that kind of longevity, and I have the
Mm-hmm.
feeling slash like fear that with X Files, if I try to go back to the back catalog of it, that
Mm-hmm.
um, somehow like it's one of those shows where like they didn't know if it was gonna work, if it was gonna get canceled. So maybe it's written kind of sloppily, and
Mm-hmm.
because I know like there was the show, and it had like a I don't know like a 4 or 5 season run, and then or maybe 3 or 4 seasons, maybe it got canceled, and there was a movie, um, and so it's one of those franchises where they've had like a few iterations of it, and I don't know if there's the kind of like quote unquote answers that would satisfy you as much as like watching something like Breaking Bad, where it's just like they said we're just having 5 seasons and that's it. Because I mean, ever since then, I feel like I'm kind of spoiled in that regard because that was such a story that worked on its own, and now I feel like everybody's kind of looking for something that is as satisfying a TV experience as Breaking Bad was.
Well, TV experiences to me always the shows that always come out with the five. There's like a five season arc pitch that kind of and works in that certain writers and showrunners kind of throw around when they have enough clout to do it. And people are always disappointed when the show ends, and not like a lot of shows they try and force them to continue after the 5 season arc because the show's so popular and makes so much money. But the best shows to me are always the ones that run on the 5-season arc, like Breaking Bad. All he wanted to do was 5 seasons. I'm sure that the network pressured him to do more, but because he had a story written out, and it's about take about 5 seasons to go throughout this whole story and this whole character progression of Walter White, and it's worked very well. It works so well because it allows the writer, in the same way a book is written, it allows you to control the amount of information that when you send it out, how do they receive it? In what way is it received? Like how is it presented? At what time? What character goes through when? Whatever, because they know the exact timetable. They know they have about 5 seasons, 20 some episode or whatever seasons, and they know they have the time to make these things work out in the correct way. Because it's like the same thing from Supernatural. The showrunner Eric Kripke, he had a 5-season arc, and yeah, the show continued after that. But he left after 5 seasons because his whole story was about these two brothers from beginning to end, which he eventually tied into the whole like struggle between Lucifer and Michael thing at the very end. I'm not going to go into spoilers about how they're connected with that or whatever, but it's like at the very like last couple episodes of Supernatural, you could see that Kripke was tying things together, like things that had happened over the course of all 5 seasons. You saw, and now they were all kind of like coming up, and the loose ends were tying up, and things that you thought might have been out of place or didn't really understand before, and now they're all starting to make sense. And it's just everything kind of ends up in a nice little bow when you allow a good writer or a good showrunner to do their 5-season arc. Because I think, to me, for TV, that is the best way to do storytelling when it comes down to a specific TV show, is to let a writer do a beginning, middle, and end arc, and then stop the show. And then you can maybe start up a different show, a spin-off or something else or whatever. But like that is TV at its best, when you allow a writer or a showrunner or whoever to pitch an arc and make a show and make a story that has a beginning, has a middle, and the most important thing, a definite end. Because those, to me, always end up being the best stories. And it's the show, but it doesn't work a whole lot because, like I said, producers and TV show executives, whenever they see a hit show happening on, they want to continue it for as long as possible. Which I can understand. There's not necessarily wrong with that. Shows certainly continue. They continue to stay, pretty good shows. Like Supernatural is still a great show. To me, it's not as good as the first 5 seasons when Kripke was running it, because it was this just amazing story that he had penned out. And the stories that they're writing now are they're kind of writing as they go. They write one season at a time, more or less, and they're still good, but they're not going to match up to that. Just like Better Call Saul, it's just not going to live up to Breaking Bad, to the original Breaking Bad.
That's what I was going to say, is that I would feel like what you should be able to propose, or what would be like the best case scenario, is like, say, okay, I have this is my story, and I have these like ancillary characters worked out, so that if we can do this story, and then if say after 5 seasons this is still popular, maybe I can do another thing. We can do a spin-off, basically, because I feel like I'm really enjoying Better Call Saul so far, and even though it's definitely a different story from Breaking Bad, I feel like it's on the same caliber, and like the fact that it's the same creator just telling this different story that is like a character that's just as compelling, even if it's in a different way. That to me is like, and I feel like that's seeping into comic storytelling, and I know that's kind of like I'm working on something, and I'm not going to go into details of what it's about or anything, but that's they're actually, there's a lot of talk in I listen to a comic book writing podcast, and they talk all the time about how people are writing for a trade paperback with that thing in mind that there's going to be a collected edition, and you know, they don't know whether they're going to be able to write past that. So like they're kind of, I mean, it's the fight, I think, that's eternal between like the commodification of art, and so like whether how writing has worked, and the evolution of writing is going to keep up with how people are able to sell it to make it successful. But I'm gonna check it out, and I'm eventually gonna get back into the X-Files thing, just because it sounds like something that I would enjoy, as somebody that hasn't yet finished Fringe and hasn't had that kind of like, you know, I haven't had that like hunger satisfied since like something like the Twilight Zone was around. So I might be willing to check it out. Plus, I've been watching Aquarius. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's on Fox. It's basically the story. It's a fictionalized version of like the Charles Manson case.
Oh, I hate stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're forgiven.
I don't know. It's just, to me, it's like, you want to see a fictional version of something that really happened. And it's like, no, it's not what I go to TV and movies for.
Okay.
I go there to see stuff I can't see anywhere else.
That's a different conversation. The conversation I'm having, basically he's the detective in it. David Duchovny, is kind of like returning to TV through that series, and I really like him in that show. So, up until then I hadn't actually seen him in anything. I like him as an actor, so that was another vote in the favor of watching X-Files. But anyway, that's all the time we have for this podcast. Thanks for listening, and as always, you can check out all the stuff that we do at graphicallychristian.com. And if you'd like to support us, you can go to patreon.com/christiancomics, and your monthly donations will be translated into prints and early access to our content. So thanks a lot for listening, and God bless.